This is the Last Minute Blues Podcast with Donnie, Alex, Jeremy, and Jeff Burton.
It is the Last Minute Blues Podcast. Donnie Fandango joined in studio by Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN. And the sighing man next to me is Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic.
That's the air coming out of JR after he's back from Winnipeg.
I was just going to say, that could also be the Blues fan base after the 2 games in Winnipeg as well.
Very
you know
true.
What I mean?
I think it might be a little softer than that.
I just want to say this from the jump, and I know that there is no answer here, that there is nothing that is going to make it better besides me being rich and not having to drive. Gentlemen, I just want to say more than anything else, I think I hate 270. I don't know if there is anything in the world that I almost hate more than the stretch of 270 between my house in South County and the radio station.
This is the real test for it. JR, what do you hate more, Winnipeg or 270?
That is a very good one.
I love Winnipeg. What do you say?
Okay, so there you go. 270 loses once again.
It was just brutal this morning.
Doesn't traffic piss you off more while you're driving and you're going through it, and once you get on the other side of it 30 minutes later, you're like, well, what was that?
Yeah.
Where?
I saw none of it.
There was nothing.
I saw absolutely none of it. And at this point in the day, you just want to get in. You just want to get started. You want to do what you got to do. Maybe, hey, if I get here in time, maybe I get to grab a breakfast sandwich before we jump in here. That kind of business doesn't happen.
Now you're thinking like me.
Find the breakfast sandwich. That's what we need. You got to get the breakfast sandwich before you hit traffic. That's how you make it better.
I was actually thinking for 1 second on the way here because I'm never, ever in a hurry when I'm coming here. And a lot of times in life you are in a hurry, right? But I dropped my daughter off for high school so early that I have an hour and a half to get here. So I'm sitting in this traffic and
JR hates us.
It's soothing because I don't have to be here, so I'm just taking my sweet old time this is great.
JR's the guy JR's the reason there's traffic. He puts it in park and falls asleep, and then the people are honking. He's
taking a nap. See, that is the kind of mentality that I need to have. Because, honestly, during the course of a day, I get virtually no time to myself. So I should probably be thankful.
Eat up that traffic.
Right. I should be thankful. I just need to be prepared, as you said, with breakfast sandwich for the traffic situation. Then it makes it a little bit more.
And give yourself 15 more minutes. So when you get to the parking lot, you put it in park, you shut your eyes for 15, and you're like, we're good to go.
See, finally I got you thinking, because now when you're busy during the day today, you're going to be, man, I wish I was stuck in traffic somewhere.
JR is the most optimistic human being I ever knew.
Just completely reframed this whole situation in a matter of 2 minutes. That's
why
pretty
I love
awesome.
JR.
All right, so listen, guys. I kind of want to say this from the get-go. This is one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot over the course of the last 24 hours since the Blues lost game number 2 to Winnipeg. And I know I heard Jamie talking about it a bit yesterday in the fast lane as well. But, guys, I firmly understand being disappointed and that it's a bummer. But I really just think as Blues fans, man, perspective is freaking key here about not getting too low about what you're seeing. I think we know why it's happening. You know what I mean? In the Dylan Holloway, in the Robert Thomas hurt, and the Cole. I just feel as though I understand wanting to win. I understand not being pumped that you're coming back home down 2-0. But I do think that perspective is super key here, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, am I crazy?
Yeah, totally. I mean, for me, you put the Blues situation in Winnipeg's hands, in Vegas's hands, in Colorado or Dallas's hands. Those fans should be pissed off because they all have aspirations to win the Cup this season. Man, I don't think anybody expected to be in this position to where you get into the postseason. Even when you went on a 12-game win streak, we did a podcast where we were like, yeah, it's still going to be an uphill battle to try and get into the playoffs because Calgary is right there with you and you got the games in hand. I totally agree. As much, and I've had so many of my friends be like, oh my gosh, they're going to get swept. He's like, can you believe this? And I'm like, well, I don't know if they're going to get swept, but it's even if they do, I really don't care because one, you got a taste of the playoffs, and two, I just felt like this team in December was going to be talking about another top 5 pick. And at that point, I was like, that's where the frustration really would have sat in. So look, you get swept, you get gentlemen swept. Who cares, man? You're in the playoffs, and every one of those guys, I look at this as Snuggerud and Dvorsky and Bolduc and Neighbors are going to take away from 4 or 5 games in this series and be like, okay, now I know what I need to do. And then next year, the real hope is going to be that you kick off in October playing playoff hockey rather than wait till February to play playoff hockey.
I would look at it like the traffic.
There we go. Man,
Here we go.
how are we positive, but then you get back to the negative?
Well, hey, he made it a positive
That's
before,
okay,
so
fair.
let's go. I'm here. I'm
Shut
locked
up,
in.
Alex.
I can't remember the exact number, but when teams go up 2-0 in a series, I think it's 85%.
85%.
85%.
Yeah.
There's 15%, Donnie. There's a 15%.
There's still a chance.
Never tell me the
Look at
odds.
the positive 15% chance. No, the one thing I would say about this situation is this. Okay, let's get past the fact that the Blues struggled all year, and let's get past that we gave them a lot of credit for getting into the postseason. Like, that was incredible, 12-game winning streak. What if they got into this first-round series against Winnipeg and just got their doors knocked off? So then you're going through further continuation of this roller coaster where you say, they're in the playoffs, this team, let's retool it, and then all of a sudden, like, whoa, we are not as close. We lost 6-1 in game 1 and, 5-2 in
Blown
game
out of the
2.
water.
Just we are not that close. But now I think legitimately you can look at it and say that, look, the Blues are playing with the top team in the league, according to the President's Trophy, and they've played 2 one-goal games against them in the first 2 games, and you're without Holloway, you're without a healthy Parayko and Robert Thomas. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen in these next 2 games. We could be witnessing a Blues win at Enterprise Center and then doing a podcast in a few days saying, hey, they're back in the series.
Right.
Who knows? But I think the fact that they have played right there toe-to-toe with Winnipeg is a very, very good sign because they're not just in the postseason, they're competing in the postseason.
It's a really good point because, we talked about this on postgame, Donnie, which, by the way, JR, Donnie Fandango, a postgame superstar right now.
Sounded like Joe Buck there.
Yeah, he's hosting Blues
Dude,
hockey.
it's so
right
much
now.
fun. Just a ridiculous. Again, we've talked about this before. That kind of stuff, dudes, is pinch me. Like, I can't believe that I get to do it. So it's amazing.
I loved it, but we were talking about it. Like, to think of where this whole scenario is at right now. I mean, for the Blues, you could turn this thing around and still be in this conversation, but from where they're at and the players that they have playing in this, and they've not once been blown out of the water by Winnipeg. Like, I've never exited a game being like, oh, this team is nowhere near Winnipeg's level. They've played better than Winnipeg in both games in the first period. They've gone toe-to-toe with Winnipeg in the second period in both games.
But you got to play.
But you got to play 3 periods, right? Yeah, the third period. Curbs called them the third period yips, and that's exactly what it's been. And it's been one line that's killed you. This isn't the fourth line that's scoring 5 goals against you. This isn't the defensemen that are beating you off of the rush. Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele are beating you up in this game right now, and that's the story of this series. But we're talking 1 goal differential in these series.
So, do you guys think if Robert Thomas, and again, we are guessing that he is not 100%. Because he got hurt in that last game of the year. They left or he left the game early. But seems as though something is maybe a little off. Do you think that he would have a better time kind of spearheading, defending that first line if he was 100%? Or is this just a matter of that first line for Winnipeg really being locked in right now?
I think he'd be defending them better. Than he is. Yeah, and we've seen him defend that line better than he is right now. It's not just him; it's the line. But
I shouldn't just put it on him.
Oh no,
you know what I mean?
no, yeah, for sure. And the last game of the regular season, he went off. Everybody knows, and he had the lower body injury. He didn't practice the next practice that the team had, maintenance day, and I saw him in the locker room the other night, and he didn't look great kind of moving around, but give him credit. He's playing 22 minutes a game out there. But that goal, you see that goal in game 2, it's not necessarily his fault, but it's hard for him if he's not moving at 100% to put the pressure on that he typically does.
Sure.
So go back to game 1. As soon as the Thomas line went out there, the Winnipeg Jets put the Scheifele line out there, so it was evident from the get-go that's who they went out there. And is that because they want to be able to play good defense on Thomas's line? Yeah, for sure. Thomas has been putting up a lot of points, but they probably know Thomas is gimpy too, and they can take advantage of that. So that'll be interesting as we head into Game 3 here in Enterprise, because as everybody knows, you get the last matchup. Jim Montgomery's going to be, nope, I want you guys out there.
Yeah.
And he can put Braden Shen's line out there.
I think it goes for Thomas and it goes for Colton Parayko. Like, Parayko played 19 minutes in Game 2. That is not Colton. Like, Parayko's playing 23, 24 minutes a night, specifically in the playoffs. But one thing that I've noticed in the 2 games is you can see and hear Colton Parayko calling for help to retrieve pucks. Behind the net, Mark Scheifele has set up Kyle Connor twice, and Cam Fowler has pinched in to help Robert Thomas all on the boards. Maybe that's being ultra-aggressive, but, man, I mean, you're abandoning the front of the net to try and win a puck battle, where typically Thomas is winning that puck battle himself, specifically against Mark Scheifele. And, again, Colton Parayko in game number 2, the puck would go back, and you heard him on the radio side shouting, go get it, go get it, go get it. That's not what Parayko's doing. So I do think, and this is going to sound like excuses, and I'm not trying to make this. This is more of an explanation for me. I think when your best defenseman and your best offensive weapon are both a little hobbled and handicapped in games, you're going to have a different outcome. And I think that's why you're seeing Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele have so much success. And on the flip of that, the reason you're not seeing so much offense is the Dylan Holloway effect. They just don't have the chemistry from the other lines. And when you rely on one line to be the offensive contributor, well, the other team's going to target that, and then good luck trying to figure out the chemistry the rest of the way.
You guys don't foresee them going the 11-7 route again on Thursday night, do you?
I'm interested. We'll find out today when we talk to Jim Montgomery. You know, obviously sometimes they don't show that in practice, just like they didn't show it in the morning skate the other night, so it's tough. I mean, does it work? If the series is as physical as it has been, and we can assume it'll be the same in Game 3, you'd like to have Tyler Tucker on the ice. I just don't see them putting Tucker in the top 6 and pulling out a Letty or Faulk or whomever. They might, but I don't think they will. And also, you're looking for offense, and I know that Matthew Joseph doesn't provide you offense, but I just think there's something to having the flow of all 4 lines going out there. So they tried it. Maybe they'll go back to it, but I would guess that they'd go back to the regular configuration.
I think so, and I don't know if they're going to do this. I'd put Texier in. And I know he's played 3 games since the Four Nations break, and it's a long shot in the playoff series, but it's pretty obvious you need offense. And, I mean, Joseph hasn't really been contributing to the offense. That line just has not had the same chemistry of Sundqvist, Bolduc, and Joseph. So I kind of wonder if you throw the lines into a blender right now. I wonder – now, I'm not doing that with Snuggerud. I think Snuggerud looked really good with Thomas and Buchnevich. But look, you need secondary scoring. And one thing we know about Texier, maybe he may not make the proper play defensively that might put you behind the 8 ball, but he does give you some offense. And I mean, you've scored 1 even-strength goal right now in this series. So I wonder if Texier gets a look.
I think that's a good call. I really do. I've kind of been not thinking about that for a couple weeks just because he's been out so long and it's hard to get up to speed, you know, in playoff hockey. But remember when Texier was out for a couple weeks recently and then jumped in, he had goals. Like
I think he scored goals in the second and third game that he played.
Back-to-back games. And, you know, if you're not making adjustments and trying to use the guys that you can, that you have options to you, then you're not doing everything you can to win the series. So, you know, I think that Joseph, when he's at his best, he can be a guy who's aggressive and that line can get moving. And we saw how good they were at one point, but it hasn't worked. And so much to the fact that they decided to go 11-7 last game. So we'll see. But yeah, you're right. You know, you think about it, it might not be surprising to see Texier out in the
like I wonder if you move a Neighbors to play with Sundqvist and Bolduc to see if Neighbors can do a little bit of what Joseph was doing when he was hot, creating space so that Bolduc can get the shots off. And I wonder if you give Texier a shot with Shen and Kyrou. But again, you're lacking that physicality, and that's the one thing that I know you need in this series is the physicality. But you also need offense right now because you're not coming back in this series unless you figure out how to play against that team at even strength.
17 shots on goal in game 1, 22 shots. You can't get it that way.
What was it? 5 in the third period of game 2, and then 2 in the third period of game 1. And the high danger scoring chances at even strength have been like 29-12.
Yeah, and I mean, even in the third period the other night, it just didn't seem like the Blues were sniffing anywhere even close. I want to ask this about the physicality in the series. Obviously, there have been a couple of times where Binner has been, for lack of a better term, ran. I don't know, maybe that, again, lack of a better term, where it just seems as though Winnipeg is doing an absolutely incredible job of being in Bennington's kitchen and then getting him to react. Are the Blues not... And they've been so great all year at defending the goaltender, but it seems as though maybe in this series... They haven't been able to because they're afraid of getting thrown in the box. They're afraid of that retaliatory thing. Am I making that up? Are you seeing that?
No, I mean, I think the retaliatory thing is a serious thing. I mean, think about it. Neighbors with a cross check that goes into the box. Bolduc with the slash goes into the box. Tucker. Yeah. So you've had 3 away from the whistle calls. And if you're the Blues, yes, that's what worked in the regular season for you. But, man, you do that. Now, your penalty kill's done great. How many times do you want to risk that against the team before they figure out their power play? I don't know if I've noticed them not retaliating. I mean, at least the 2 that I can remember from Game 2 where Binnington got bumped. One was Snuggerud trying to push the guy, which was the goal that went in. And the other one, if I remember correctly, Scheifele, he fell down while he was going into it. I mean...
Yeah, that didn't look intentional.
Yeah, he went down, and even Parayko kind of held him there, and you saw him lean down to, talk to him. I think it was like he fell and slid into Binnington, and then Binnington rolled out of it.
But I think Donnie's got a point here, and Jim Montgomery talked about it after the game the other night. It's not so much defending Binnington if something happens. You certainly want to do that. We have seen it all year, and you would think that if something egregious happened that you would see him. But the Blues need to do that at the other end.
So, yes,
so bad.
So let's say that Scheifele didn't intend anything. Let's just base on that premise. There's still 1 or 2 or 3 of those types of things throughout the series that something could lead to something, or at the very minimum, Binnington's thinking about it. Or so the Blues haven't created nearly enough in front of Hellebuck. He's going to win the league MVP, I think. And here's a guy who has given up more goals than you would think going into a series against the Blues. But also the fact that he's seeing all the shots, everything he's seeing. There's no traffic in front. Yeah. You would think that, especially after Game 1, going into Game 2, the Blues are talking about it. Create some commotion in front of the goaltender. I think I looked it up after the game the other night. In Game 2, I want to say the Blues had just 1 rebound attempt. Yeah. And it was Sundqvist.
In the game?
In the game. And now that's, I take that back. That's 5-on-5.
Okay.
Yep. So we're not.
But still.
Yeah, still.
You saw that heat map at Natural Stat Trick we were looking at on the game. There was nothing in front of the Winnipeg net.
So if there is a shot on goal, there are no rebound attempts. There's nothing in front of the net. And the Blues, I'm just going to say it, the Blues are going to lose the series. They're going to be swept if that doesn't change.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. So, I mean, we saw them doing that, creating that commotion, making those ugly goals during that run all of the friggin' time. It was amazing. That was one of the things that we were gravitating towards because they were getting those dirty goals.
And Montgomery said it before the series. He said this series will be won by who wins the net front battle.
Yeah, and along those lines, you can be as physical as you want. You can have 53 hits in Game 1. If you're not physical around the net, it doesn't matter. What good does it do to be physical at the red line?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, too, I mean, think of it, because I asked John Buccigross this yesterday, who was on the call, because I'm wondering, if you're the front office, are you watching this saying, we lack a little size. We lack the ability to get to the front. And, man, Buccigross pushed back. He goes, no. He said, you've got Pavel Buchnevich, who's a big dude. You've got Jake Neighbors, who's a big dude. Braden Shen, Oscar Sundqvist. Matthew Joseph, when he was in the lineup, is a guy that goes to the front of the net. Even you've got a Zach Bolduc who's not afraid to do it. And Snuggerud's area on the power play is standing in front of the net. So you got guys that can play there. You need to have guys who are willing to go there. And in the playoffs, man, you are taking a toll. And Joey referenced it on pregame Saturday night for Game 2. He's like, I had the conversation with Jake Neighbors, and I asked him how he was, and Neighbors said, I'm good. And Joey said, seriously, how are you? And Neighbors said, my body hurts.
Yeah.
Which, this is the learning curve of, this is the playoffs, and you've just got to find a way. Not saying these guys aren't, but I'm anticipating Thursday an emphasis of that, because Winnipeg's big, but they're not big in front of their net. They're not like what Vegas is. Vegas has got dudes that are 6'5", 6'6", 6'7".
That will punish you.
Winnipeg's got one guy who's 6'7", and it's Logan Stanley.
Yeah, and
who, by the way, Kyrou, I'm sure, is very hears footsteps in his sleep right now from that hit.
And we saw what Stanley did to Kyrou, and maybe I'm mistaken. You guys remind me. I don't know that I've seen anything like, obviously not like that hit, but anything remotely close to
Stanley on
a
Kyrou.
lot of physicality on Scheifele
No,
And
not on those.
Connor
I've
in
seen
those
Shen
games.
take out Lowry. That was the big hit from
Yeah.
game 2. But yeah, I have not seen that. But think of who's playing
Exactly.
against Scheifele and Connor. That's why we talk chess match so much about the playoffs. I am fascinated to see what matchup Montgomery wants at home against the Scheifele line. Because who's the centerman? Who's the line that you trust defensively against that line? I would imagine you want to get Thomas away from them to maybe create some offense, especially if Thomas isn't 100%. But, I mean, do you want the Shen line against them? Because that means Kyrou is going to be matching up with Kyle Connor, and Kyrou's had a good season defensively. But what about the playoffs? Do you go the WTF line? The WTF line hasn't had the same success that they were having in the regular season. I'm fascinated to find out how they find a way to try and eliminate that Scheifele line.
And I realize that Connor, I mean, these guys, they just like disappear into soft space.
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
like, where did this guy go?
Seriously.
Like, it would be impossible to defend these guys, I think, a lot. Just go, oh, there he is. Oh, he just scored. But I mean,
Man
if
to
you
man, just
don't,
hold his jersey.
if you can't get a body on these guys somewhere on the ice, and I haven't seen it.
No.
So,
Yeah, and you're right. If you're not laying punishing hits on them, then they're not looking over their shoulder expecting something.
I don't know the best way to ask this question, but like, obviously there is a ton of things that the Blues are not doing that they need to be doing to win, to score. But how much of this is because Winnipeg is really goddamn good? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, is this a Winnipeg team that maybe we're starting to see sort of lock it in for maybe for real a cup run, or are the Blues just kind of, slipping along here and maybe making life a little easier for them than it should be?
I personally feel like it's a little bit of a mix of both. Okay. Like, I'm not taking anything away from Winnipeg. Winnipeg made an emphasis on their defense this season. They are not allowing anything. The reason the Blues aren't getting into the front of the net is because Winnipeg's doing a really good job of stopping them in the neutral zone, and when they get in the zone, they're aggressive on you, force you to turn the pucks over, and then it's going the other way. But, man, I also look at Winnipeg and think, like, okay, this is a hobbled Blues team, and you've been tied with them or leading with them going into the third period. I don't know if Winnipeg is this world beater. I think they're very good defensively. If you look at how they were at the end of the from the Four Nations break until the end of the season, they weren't a great offensive team. I think they were bottom 10 in the National Hockey League at even strength goals for. Some of that was injury. They didn't have Velarde. They didn't have Ehlers. I think they were without Perfetti for a little bit of time. So, like, you can make some arguments of why, but I don't look at this Winnipeg team and be like, oh, this team's going to the Stanley Cup. I think realistically, Winnipeg could go into the next round if they beat the Blues and probably lose to Colorado or Dallas.
I agree with you. The one thing I will add, though, is that, in the playoffs, you don't typically see blowouts, So even if a team's dominant, you're not going to see, like, 4-1 scores every night. They're going to be tight. Teams do, not necessarily just what they can to win, but sometimes it's so hard out there that you just win the game 2-1. And it's not so much the score differential. It's now, can Winnipeg go do that against Dallas? Can they do that against Colorado? And I think they stack up pretty good. I mean, they might not have quite the roster that some of those teams have, but the biggest thing, we've talked about it, guys, is just how hardened you are. I mean, people were saying what they're saying about young teams like the Blues about Winnipeg 3-4 years ago, and then all of a sudden you lose a series 4-1, you lose another series 4-1. All of a sudden those guys go in the offseason, they say, we're going to take it up a notch, and they're there. Like, this is a good, suffocating team. The reason you saw the Blues, they were having great success getting the puck out of their zone and going up and scoring a ton of goals during the 12-game winning streak. Winnipeg's not allowing them to get out. They're not allowing them to get up ice. They're not able to get into their forecheck. They're not able to do so many things that they were successful at doing. And then, as I mentioned in the story the other day, that's 3 times in the last 28 games now. So you're talking final 26 of the regular season, 2 playoffs. That's 3 times that a team has taken it to the Blues in the third period. All 3 times it's Winnipeg.
Yeah, so not an accident.
No.
Not an accident at this point. Yeah. Here, I love playoff hockey. I love Blues hockey. So I'm not really sure, the next time that we speak, where we'll be standing. But again, as I started, listen, guys, what we've seen Jimmy Snuggerud do in the last 2 weeks, and I know I said this 100 times in the pre and post game, but again, I find it so unbelievable. Homeboy was in college last month. Like, this is ridiculous. The core here, guys. Yeah. I just cannot be down. I just really can't. It's frustrating. I would obviously like to see it different, but I mean, There are just way too many good things happening for me to be framed in any kind of negative way, really.
It just feels like this is the start of a competitive window once again for the Blues. And, like, I don't know what happens in this series. My gut tells me that if you can win in Game 3, you can at least put some pressure. But, man, if you lose Game 3, it's going to be an exhausted group in Game 4 trying to drive yourself back into the series knowing you're going back to Winnipeg. So Game 3 to me is about as critical of a point in the series that you can ask for. But again, man, they could get swept on Sunday. They could go back to Winnipeg and lose in 5. This just feels like the start of a potential, and Buccigross told us this, feels like the start of a potential 8 to 10 year window where the team can be competitive. Like, I'm going into next season, no matter what happens, thinking, okay, playoffs.
Yes.
This is not a question of, do they take a step backwards? It should be the playoffs. And maybe that's too aggressive by me. But, man, you went on a 12-game win streak. You were better once Jim Montgomery took over. You figured out the confidence. I don't know what the roster is going to look like next year, but you've got a healthy pipeline. You've got a lot of guys who are here that just had this experience. It's hard to look at this team and say, yeah, they could fall out of the playoffs again. No, I think they should be in the playoff conversation.
I do. I should have asked this earlier. This is why I should have taken notes, or should take notes.
You were stuck in traffic. You didn't park like JR did.
So it always Blues fandom will always turn to one whipping boy. It will happen. It was Bouwmeester. It was Petro. It was Brewer. It was, we could go through the names.
Poor Eric Brewer.
Right now, it is Mr. Faulk. Guys, what is it that you are seeing from him that you do not like? What is it that people are seeing that are making them so crazy about this guy and his play? But it just seems like, for better or for worse, whether it's justified or not, that he seems to be whipping boy number one these days in the Blue Circle. Maybe Nick Leddy.
Yeah, well, it felt like the trio of whipping boys over the last couple of years was Faulk, Krug, and Leddy, right? Like, and I think a lot of it was because of the contracts, and people saw it and were like, oh, well, they can't do anything because of these contracts. For me personally, because I've been out front saying, like, I think I probably would have taken Faulk out of the lineup and put a Tucker in. Now, they went the 7 defensemen, so it worked. I've just seen the no-look backhand passes to get out of the zone, and that's the type of stuff that you just can't do. Now, some of these were in the regular season. I haven't seen it in the postseason. Frankly, I think Faulk is tied with the team lead in points for your team in the playoffs so far, so he's contributing offensively. It's just in the defensive end, it just feels like there's not enough pushback in front of your own net that allows them to get there. And again, it's the playoffs. This is where you're going to have to find a way to do that. I think Faulk has played better. I think people are frustrated because he's not generating offense and because you're seeing those turnovers in their own. We remember Bouwmeester. The reason people disliked Bouwmeester was because for like 2-year stretch, pucks were bouncing off of his skate and into the back of the net. What are you supposed to do with that one? Yeah. I think a lot of that is probably why people are frustrated with Faulk.
Yeah, just the same thing. And I think it was, you're right, down the stretch in the regular season, it seemed like there were like 2 or 3 turnovers within about a 5-game stretch where they were just, behind the back, no look, right to the
what are you doing?
Opposing forward. And, he's a good defenseman, but the one thing that you have to count on from a veteran is to not make those mistakes. Like, you're going to make mistakes, just not those mistakes.
Well, and his skating is his asset, right? Like, his ability to skate with the puck. He's an offensive defenseman that jumps into the rush. I'll give you a great example. Game 2, what was it, that third period where he had the puck and the team went on the line shift? He started to skate, and then he just paused and hesitated. Winnipeg started to pursue him, and then he kind of, like, stick-handled, and then he lost the puck, and then Winnipeg had it in the zone. Now, no goals were scored from it, but those are just the mistakes that in the playoffs, one little thing can result in the puck being in the back of your net.
I remember that play, just a little too casual.
Yeah.
And you've seen him be too casual. And, hey, sometimes that's a good thing for a player.
Right.
To just,
especially in the playoffs.
Yeah. If you're comfortable with what you can do, then you get the puck up the ice at the way you want to do it. But sometimes too casual, when it leads to a turnover, you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And I think that's where people are. I think it's a mix with Faulk. Some of it is unfair. Like, look, the Blues gave him the contract extension back when they traded for him because he was a good defenseman and they wanted him here. And let's also not forget what he was a few years ago when he put up, 50-something points for the team. I think people are frustrated because of the contract and where the Blues are at. I think people are frustrated because he's not generating that same type of offense. and some of those casual plays, I can see being the frustration.
What is the contract? What's remaining on that bad boy?
Yeah, a couple more years.
Yeah, 2
with,
years.
He and Krug.
Yeah,
same,
6.5
same
mil.
deals.
That's right. Yeah.
and-
Yeah, 2 years that one, and then I think there's the final year of Letty is
Letty.
after this season.
When do you think we'll find out about Torrey Krug and if he will be able to resume an NHL career or if he's going to have to retire?
I would think, here in the offseason there'll probably be some word on that. And, everything that I'm hearing is that he's likely done. But, I don't want to say that with any confirmation because I haven't heard that from him.
Right.
But we'll see. That's a very, very difficult surgery to come back.
Yeah, my guess is you'll hear it at the off-season exit interviews. Somebody will probably ask Doug Armstrong about Krug, and then you'll probably hear it at training camp next year whether he's making his way back or not. But yeah,
it's just so unfortunate for him for him to have played as long here with seemingly an injury that was a really big deal. So it feels as though maybe we never got to see how really good Torrey Krug could have been for us.
Yeah, well, and it goes back to the Boston Bruins. That's where he injured it. 2018, I believe, is what it was, where he injured it, and then he came back and pushed through it. Yeah,
dude, that's when I have a hard time criticizing what a guy's doing on the ice. When he's playing on one goddamn ankle for 6 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just kind of puts it into a different perspective for you.
And I think that's why when you look at the Parayko and the Thomas thing, it's like, it's good that they're out there, but you want to make sure that everything's good.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be playing if it wasn't, because those guys are massive pieces of your future. But yeah, anytime guys are playing through injuries, that's why the playoffs are so much fun, because guys exit those playoffs like, I had 15 cracked ribs, my leg muscle was dislocated and I had a punctured lung. I was breathing through a tube at the end of games, but I want to win that cup.
But I had to be out here. It's playoff hockey.
Dylan Holloway taking the puck off his Vegas nerve and being like, I just had to finish that forecheck. And it's like, wait, what? You're dying on the bench, man. Don't worry about the forecheck.
Now, listen, I appreciate your dedication to your team, but we
loves you,
really
man.
want to see you get out of here alive, all right? First and foremost. All right, well, you know what? Don't know what's going to happen, but, again, I think positivity is key here as, whatever happens.
I'm glad we get that 8:30 puck drop, though, for Game 3. That'll be good. At least we're not 10 o'clock,
We
right,
can't
JR?
complain. Yeah, last night was 10 o'clock. I was falling asleep in my couch just thinking about what it'd be like to be out in Vegas.
Although, let's be honest, complaining of being in Vegas at 10 o'clock at night, like, the night doesn't start until 1 a.m. when you're in Vegas.
Not when you're 50.
I also realized last night that I can't see any games unless they're on Max. Because I couldn't.
Oh, you don't have.
I don't have regular cable, so I don't have ESPN2. And even though I have ESPN Plus, that is not enough for me to have ESPN2.
You got to get Disney Plus, man.
No, I have Disney Plus.
Oh, and ESPN Plus is not enough for it. Yeah, ESPN's basic cable.
Because I wanted to watch the friggin' Toronto game last night.
Or not basic cable.
But I'm not signing up for that whole friggin' rigmarole for cable again.
You don't want to reattach the cord after you cut the cord?
I do not. And also, too, I think my damn bill is just the same with all the streaming services that we have anyway, so it doesn't matter. Anywho.
Personal problems.
All right, so thank you very much for listening to the Last Minute Blues podcast. For Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic, Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN, our homeboy Jeff Burton, who is really bummed out that they're down 2-0. It is the Last Minute Blues podcast. My name is Donnie Fandango. Thanks as always for listening, and let's go Blues.
The Last Minute Blues podcast. Hear more at 1057thepoint.com.